We are now just hours away from finally getting the preliminary conclusions from Bob Mueller's report.
You have a president who, in my opinion, beyond the shadow of a doubt, sought to collude with the Russian government.
The fact of the matter is, they did not indict anybody for collusion. There's no such crime as collusion. Whatever it is, nobody did it.
The president is going about his weekend playing golf with Kid Rock.
A growing number of 2020 Democratic hopefuls will not attend a major pro-Israel conference.
When Ilhan is facing some controversy, that is not something to be afraid of.
We have no problem with criticism, but the way it is being done, we need to denounce anti-Semitism. It is unacceptable.
Two Villanova defenders there with Edwards. He gets past them both and throws it in reverse. It's over!
All the play our own basketball game.
They need you.
Yes, sir!
Give it to him. No! Oh, sorry, the better man won.
Y'all ready for this?
We have a new entrant in the sweepstakes, our market this year.
We do. So last year Ed beat me, I'll say it. This year I get a rematch, but Katie Pavlich played high school basketball. She's a southpaw.
She's coming out of left field, which is
coming out of for her. And Ed made one shot, and I had not heard the end of it. So Katie, I learned this in the break. The viewers would be interested to know. You shoot left-handed.
I do.
But you throw a baseball right-handed?
That is correct. And I bat left-handed, but hit a volleyball right-handed.
What in the world?
So you never know. I just keep everyone guessing when you're playing sports against me. So we'll see how it goes.
Can you email us, friends@foxnews.com. Are you also, is that ambidextrous?
I think so. I think that's the proper term.
Pretty much what you are. I'm much more worried about Katie than I am about Ed.
Oh, wait.
Dave,
that's
is that right?
The break.
Me too.
Everyone's worried.
Everyone's worried.
No, setting expectations pretty high for me, so hopefully I don't airball like I did with the Globetrotters earlier.
Speaking of airballs.
And expectations high, that would be Robert Mueller.
Yes, the
Democrats had sort of inflated that for almost 2 years, suggesting, boy, oh boy, this report is going to deliver the goods. Maybe it'll take out President Trump. Instead, we got the word on Friday that there will be no new indictments. So the president's not going to be indicted. People around him associated with Russia, the alleged conspiracy, and all of that we heard about for 2 years now.
We heard about it endlessly. And if I had any power on the show, I would just replay what we did in the 8 o'clock hour, which is about 10 minutes with Mark Levin, the great one, who was ahead of this story before pretty much anyone else was. We had him on the program, Mark Levin, talking about the implications of the Mueller report being delivered, who's responsible for it, what this scandal is all about. Take a listen to Mark Levin.
The fact of the matter is, they did not indict anybody for collusion. You want to know why? There's two reasons. There's no such crime as collusion. And number two, whatever it is, nobody did it. You know who's acted most responsibly throughout this whole thing? And yet who's trashed every day? The President of the United States. He didn't take a single governmental action to stop the FBI and the Department of Justice, despite the fact that the FBI and the Department of Justice were out to stop him. This is the great scandal in American history, and I mean it.
So now Democrats who have been saying that they will wait for the Mueller report to make any kind of conclusions, some of them are now saying they're not going to accept the conclusions. They want to subpoena Robert Mueller to come talk about the report. This in the Washington Post with this headline: Democrats insist on pursuing Trump investigations no matter what Mueller concludes. So for a very long time, we heard that Mueller can be trusted. Whatever he finds will be credible. We will accept the results. And now that the results are in without indictments of the president and his close associates, they now are saying they're going to continue investigating with the power they have in the House.
You would think that after the special counsel with, $26 million, able to investigate whatever he wanted, not finding collusion with Russia, the Democrats would finally say, okay, President Trump won the 2016 election fair and square. That's what they'll probably say.
Yeah, I mean, and what folks are thinking this morning is, when does it end? Does it ever end? Will you ever accept anything? Or are you just going to litigate 2016 all the way to 2020? And for Democrats running for president, is that a beneficial approach?
Right.
Do you really want to run on, we've investigated this guy forever, we don't like him, we hate him.
And we're going to do it for 2 more years.
We're going to keep doing it? I mean, I just don't think it works.
But not only have they not accepted, now there's some of them are now saying they're not going to accept the Mueller results. Some Democrats, including Congressman John Lewis from Georgia, still says that he doesn't think President Trump is a legitimate president.
I don't think he's legitimate. I said it back at the end of the election, and I still believe that today.
That he is not a legitimate president.
He's not a legitimate president.
That's interesting because it happened on Joy Reid's show yesterday, and in addition to that interview saying the president's not legitimate, Joy Reid was also saying that she thinks there are the seeds of a cover-up with William Barr. So now we're going to change the focus to the Attorney General, who's barely been on the job for a couple of weeks.
Who everyone
got
agrees
the report
is
on
credible.
Friday and immediately said to Congress, Democrats and Republicans, here it is. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be transparent. And yet he's part of a cover-up.
I remember when Democrats said it was a threat to democracy, an attack on our country and our voting system to not accept election results and not to accept the findings from Robert Mueller. And here we are now with Democrats rejecting both of those still.
Yeah, you know who's not a legitimate president? Hillary Clinton. Because she didn't win. They won't ever accept that. But they went after anyone around President Trump from the beginning, including you had Jerome Corsi on the program, an associate of President Trump.
They were trying to force him to take a plea deal. In the end,
without an indictment.
Right, and then in the end, they didn't indict him anyway. So it doesn't sound like they thought they had strong charges against him.
Yeah, and he felt like his life was turned over, but he wouldn't admit to something he didn't do. Take a listen.
The turning point for me, when I was trying to decide to accept the plea deal or not, my wife woke up one morning and she said, I'd rather visit you in prison for the rest of your life than have you not be the man I married. And when she said that, I realized that was a turning point, that if my wife could accept that, I could not swear before a federal judge that I committed a crime I didn't. And we told Mueller to take a hike. That day I expected I'd be indicted. It was bullying me from the beginning.
Yeah, you heard the same thing from a lot of people who went before Mueller. Ultimately, if he didn't bring charges against the president or his son or others around him, he didn't have the goods because there was nothing there.
Well, Republican Congressman Devin Nunes has been talking about investigating the investigators for a long time, focused on the FBI and the DOJ. He joins us now. Congressman, we appreciate you being here.
Ed, thank you. It's bright and early out here in California.
I bet it is.
The sun's just starting to come up here in the San Joaquin Valley. Great to be with you.
So should investigating the investigators also now include what really happened with the Mueller probe? If Democrats say we want to see all the documents, what kind of documents do you want to see then about how we got to this investigation in the first place?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't really care what the Mueller report says because the Mueller special counsel should have never been appointed. And I say that, and we can take any part of this investigation and we can show you how fraudulent it is. But I think the most important item that comes to mind is our congressional investigation was obstructed by the Department of Justice and the FBI. That is a crime. So that's one of the first things that they should look at. And you can start with, among many things, the McCabe text messages that just broke on Friday that weren't given to the Congress, which are extremely critical because it shows that they knew that one of their sources that they had submitted to the FISA court was not credible, which is what we've been saying forever. And somehow McCabe text messages escaped Congress. And you've seen that over and over again. Things have been redacted. It's a lot like, you know, this whole thing looking for collusion. It was all a lie and a myth.
Okay, so Congressman, you talk about being obstructed by the Department of Justice, the FBI, in your investigation of the situation. But what about President Trump's ability to declassify all of the documents that you are in pursuit of? He has the ability to do that. He has not done it. Do you think he still should?
Absolutely. So the Mueller report, a lot of people, what does it say? We can just, burn it up. I mean, it is a partisan document. So there's going to be a lot of calls for that. And the Democrats say, we got to see the underlying information. What we really need to see is what was the FBI's involvement with Fusion GPS? Who did they know about? And I'm sorry, I don't want to gloss over this for the viewers, but Fusion GPS was essentially the Hillary Clinton campaign. They were hired by the Clinton campaign. So we need to see all of that. We need the FISAs fully disclosed. We need everyone that Mueller talked to, including his interactions with Jerome Corsi, who you just had on the show. Look, I can't imagine why they would bring Jerome Corsi in to interview with the special counsel. Jerome Corsi is just a long-time kind of press guy. I think you guys have known him for a long time. He had every right to call Julian Assange or anybody else that he wants to. Now, look, I don't agree with that. I wouldn't call Julian Assange, but press people do that all the time. That's part of our First Amendment right.
Congressman, so some have called for a second special counsel, someone to look into what was done to surveil this president, what processes were violated. How far should you and other Republicans go, or other just Americans go, to get to the truth of what happened here?
A second special counsel would have been great about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It would have been better to have not have a need for a second special counsel because we wouldn't have had an investigation in the first place. But I do have faith in the new Attorney General. I think he knows that it's critical for the American people to have confidence in the FBI and the Department of Justice. It's clear that this was not a widespread plague across the entire Department of Justice. It was a few really, really bad apples. So I think that if they start to put out the critical information, who talked to who when, it'll be pretty simple to have an investigation run by just an independent type of investigator, U.S. attorney or someone. And, we're going to make a criminal referral, the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, that we've been waiting until this Mueller report comes out.
All right, Congressman. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman.
Hey, guys, thank you.
Meanwhile, ISIS took her son's life. Now James Foley's mom says she is grateful that terror group has finally been defeated. She joins us live next with why there is still a lot of work to be done.
Plus, brand new Fox News polls just released what they say about the growing Democratic field for president and if they want Joe Biden to enter the race or not.
I look forward to those. And today is, mark your calendar, National Cheesesteak Day.
That's what John Kerry was running for president. Rather than getting cheese whiz like everyone else, he asked for Swiss cheese.
Of course he did.
Swiss cheese.
He's a sophisticated elite. And we have authentic cheesesteaks straight from the birthplace to settle the cheesesteak debate. Let's get a better photo for the next.
Do they have any brie?
Only Ed.
So what happens is, this is all ISIS. Now on the bottom, that's as of today. This is ISIS. There's none. The caliphate is gone as of tonight.
President Trump touting the impending defeat of the terror group after the last area held by Islamic State was liberated last week. This comes 4.5 years after the brutal murder of American journalist James Foley at the hands of ISIS. So has justice been served? Joining me now is James Foley's mother, Diane Foley. Diane, thank you so much for being here today. Your son was abducted in 2012 in northwestern Syria while working as a journalist. He was brutally murdered in 2014. What is your reaction now to the president saying that the physical caliphate of ISIS has been defeated?
Well, I'm grateful for that progress. However, I really feel that radical jihadists and those that hate us in the world continue to be a danger. And for example, al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, has not been located or apprehended. And my other concern are the hundreds of ISIS fighters who are being held in northern Syria, but have not yet been held accountable for their human rights crimes. So I feel we must really take some leadership on this. Two British jihadists who allegedly tortured and killed our son and 3 other Americans are still being held. It's been 1 year since their capture, and they still have not been held accountable for these crimes. I'm very concerned about that. And the hundreds of unjustly detained Americans held throughout the world, at least 2 cases in Syria, Austin Tice, Maj Kamalmaz, and of course we have U.S. hostages in Iran and in Venezuela. So we have very pressing problems throughout the world, so I hope we continue to keep our eyes on this threat. They're very shrewd, Katie.
Yes,
they know how to hide.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about James? He was very interested in going to Syria, covering this story. It was very important to him. Can you tell us a little bit about his legacy and what you hope to see in terms of justice for him and your family moving forward?
Thank you, Katie. Yes. Jim's legacy is this continued need to advocate for Americans who've been unjustly taken hostage, detained throughout the world. Unfortunately, this is a problem that is a very quiet problem. A lot of folks don't even want to know that their loved ones being held like this. But it is a way that nations who hate us want to use this as clout, take innocent American citizens and hold them against their will around the world. So we continue to advocate and raise this issue. I thank the Trump administration for them making the return of American hostages more of a national priority. I'm very grateful for that. But we continue to, we're very challenged by this issue because countries continue to hold our citizens, and of course there's groups like these radical jihadists who just take our citizens indiscriminately, as Jim was taken.
Deanne, I know that you've been in touch with other families who have had family members held and killed. The Sotloff family comes to mind. Stephen Sotloff was also killed by ISIS. Can you talk a little bit about the progress that you've made with the new administration in terms of working on getting hostages home?
There has been a lot of progress. This administration has kept PPD 30 alive and well. We have a hostage fusion cell. We have a wonderful special envoy for hostage affairs in Robert O'Brien, as well as a hostage recovery group at the White House. So they are working very hard with us. We are, James Foley Foundation recently hired a new executive director to work closely in Washington with them. So we feel there's definite progress. We're grateful to Secretary Pompeo and President Trump for his work.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful that you came in today to talk to us about James, and we hope that you get justice as ISIS's caliphate, physical caliphate, comes to an end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, next, as we wait for the Mueller report details, one of the Democrats who spoke to Nancy Pelosi about it joins us next, the California congressman, and why he thinks the report needs to go public.
This program is back with some headlines. Several cars erupt in flames. Look at this. During a massive pileup on a California freeway, more than 30 people were hurt, including a baby who's now in critical condition. One horse actually died in the crash. As many as 50 vehicles were involved. Authorities are investigating what caused the chain reaction. Several drivers say it was thick fog that impacted visibility. And Robert Kraft breaks his silence. The owner of the Patriots, since being charged with soliciting prostitution in Florida, had not spoken out. He's now apologizing, saying in part, quote, "I am truly sorry. I know I have hurt and disappointed my family, my close friends, my coworkers, our fans, and many others who rightfully hold me to a higher standard." He has pleaded not guilty. Pete?
Thanks, Ed. Well, Democrat lawmakers demanding Mueller's report be made fully public. In a conference call yesterday, Nancy Pelosi reportedly telling her caucus, the takeaway from this call is that the American people deserve the truth, to know the truth, and transparency is the order of the day. So what else do Democrats have up their sleeve? Our next guest was on that conference call. Democrat Congressman John Garamendi joins us now with an inside look. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. We don't know yet what's in the report. We know it's been delivered. Right. The conference call yesterday was to discuss how Democrats will handle the fallout or the reaction to it. Sure. What was said on that call, and how are you reacting today?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I really want to congratulate you on the previous report about Syria. While the caliphate is complete, destroyed, that is physical. I just came back from Iraq, and your former section was right on. We have to continue staying on top of this. Now, with regard to the call, it's interesting that every member of Congress, 420 or so, voted for a full, open report, that all the information be made available, and that's what the Democrats want to do, and apparently the Republicans also. Presumably, there'll be a lot of spin doctoring going on, as it's actually happening. But there are some facts, there are some information, a lot of information that's in that report beyond just the headlines, which we'll probably have today. And we need to know. We really need to know what happened.
Congressman, the fear for some is that there's games being played here. So the Democrats call for transparency, but you understand the Attorney General has to be prudent about what gets released and why. There's confidential information. There's ongoing investigations. There's things that can't be released. So will you accept a released report that has some redactions that are prudent for our country?
Of course. And then we'll have to define prudent, and that's a process that will be underway. But I think really the American public has been waiting now for more than 2 years for a conclusion, and the conclusion cannot just be a bunch of headlines and that we'll probably receive today. There's an enormous amount of material that has been already presented to the committees when the Republicans ran it. Now the Democrats are running the committees in the House, and same thing in the Senate. And there's new information that may prove that somebody was lying, perjuring themselves or not. There's a lot of data. Ultimately, the bottom line of all this is we know for a fact that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. We need to find ways, laws perhaps.
But that's very different than the Trump campaign or the Trump team colluding with Russia. No indictments, not a single one of the indictments from Bob Mueller was about collusion. So you talked about a conclusion. I think what the American people are asking is, we've spent $25 million, almost 2 years, an army of lawyers with overwhelming power to investigate whatever they want. And this report will come out and conclude no indictments on collusion. Are you prepared to move on, or are you with your Democrat colleagues who want even more investigations?
Well, there are 6 committee investigations underway now. And those investigations need to have whatever information is.
What are they investigating at this point? I thought Bob Mueller was the definitive point. I thought he was going to help us get underneath this and draw conclusions so our country can move on. Are you saying we have to investigate all the way, even to 2020?
Well, we're going to do that. Now, keep in mind that there are ongoing investigations by the Southern District in New York, by the Attorney Generals here in Washington, D.C., and states across, and a couple of states, New York specifically. Those are investigations about things that may or may not be related to collusion and what went on in the campaign. But I want to go to the bottom line here, and that is that there is a probability that in future elections, 2020, that countries, probably Russia, perhaps others, will attempt to interfere in that election. We need to fully understand what happened in 2016, whether the presidential campaign was involved or not. That'll come out. But we need to be sure that we are protecting our process.
I think we've looked a lot into the Trump team. There's no doubt about that. But what about smashing BlackBerries? And what about millions sent to the Clinton Foundation? Do you have any concern that on your side of the aisle, there was collusion, that there was corruption at the FBI, at the DOJ, there was an investigation into a political candidate? Would you support fair-minded efforts to get to the bottom of that side of it?
Of course. Of course. If there was inappropriate actions taken by anybody in this whole process, of course, and that's why I've been saying, and in fact, every member of Congress agreed for all of the information to be made public. So
but you're talking about they all agreed for the information to be made public on this investigation. But will a single Democratic House committee investigate what happened with the Clinton campaign?
Well, that certainly took place when the Republicans were in control just 3 months ago. Now, whether going forward, we're talking right now about the Mueller report. Beyond that, will there be information in that report that goes to the issues you just raised as to what else was going on? Quite probably there would be, because, as you said, they spent a lot of time looking at hopefully all of the elements that were involved in the 2016 election and beyond. So let's get it out there. Let the American public know. Let the investigations go forward, and we'll see where it goes. We do.
Congressman, I want to thank you for coming on the program. John Garamendi, thank you for coming on. You're welcome anytime. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, well, brand new Fox News polls just released about the growing Democrat field for president. And the Democrats, they want Joe Biden. Do they want him to enter or not? We will answer that question for you. Plus, what do the voters think at the end of the Mueller investigation? Todd Pyro talking to voters in Virginia Beach, a young voter who probably can't vote, but someday. And we're celebrating national, he's preaching right now, telling her if you're 16, the Democrats want you to vote. All right, celebrating National Cheesecake Day with some of the originals straight from Philly.
This is good.
Settling the sandwich debate.
I'm with Patch for now.
Coming up next.
Well, brand new Fox polls out, not just this morning, but this very hour, taking a look at the 2020 Democratic field preference among Democratic primary voters. As you can see, Joe Biden is not even in the race, but probably because name ID is way at the top, 31%.
Right. And we expect that he may begin in April, according to a number of people who've talked about it, including Senator Chris Coons, fellow Democrat in Delaware. Bernie Sanders there coming in at 23%, Kamala Harris 8%, Beto Bob O'Rourke 8%, and Cory Booker at 4%. But Harris's numbers have gone up.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because Pete has been talking about Bernie Sanders, don't sleep on him, and he's still way up there, and I don't think there was a Beto bounce. He's been in for at least a week or so. I'm not saying that he should be at the top just yet, but he's still in the middle there with Harris and others, and he didn't get a bounce. And by the way, Elizabeth Warren is sort of not even.
Turns out voters don't.
Running?
Yeah. Voters don't want to vote for the teenage son. That's an interesting poll. Think about it. Democratic primary voters. This is the newest information that we have. Nationally, they say they want Biden. What happens when he actually enters the race and then has to answer the questions of the activists?
Yeah.
Where do his numbers go? Bernie Sanders has held steady there. That isn't broken down by early states, which, South Carolina, New Hampshire, Iowa, that's going to matter too.
Warren at 4%, Gillibrand at 2%.
Yeah, there's a lot of also-rans that are never going to crack that 5%. So check it out, foxnews.com, new poll, lots of interesting numbers.
All right, by the way, this Mueller report obviously handed over to the Attorney General on Friday. We think as soon as this afternoon, Congress may get a look at least at the top line findings, not the overall report, but was there collusion, was there obstruction?
So what do the voters think about all of this? Let's ask Todd Pyro. He's talking to them live over Breakfast with Friends at Anchor Alley's in Virginia Beach. Todd.
Hey guys, it's the talk of the nation. Let's get right to it. Ron's in finance, and Ron, as a money guy, you say Mueller report's a waste of money. Why?
Totally unnecessary. There's a lot of other issues that we need to tackle right now, and this was not one of them. We could use our money elsewhere.
Ron, thank you. Jason, retired Navy, you worry the investigators are not done because you say the Democrats are way more loyal to party than people. Why?
That's right, Todd. I think right now you see that there's more loyalty on there than the party side than there are to the people out there. We need more collaboration. People need to come together and work more for the people, not just for their parties themselves.
And you also say you think this whole investigation, A, not done, but B, is all part of a ruse to hurt President Trump going into 2020. Why?
Well, I see that. I don't think they're trying so much to damage his presidency or be upset that they lost the election. I think this may be part of a kind of a defamation campaign to put themselves in a competitive position for the next election.
Jason, thank you. Bob, also a Navy vet. I fly on. Remember we did that thing where I flew in that tube? Bob owns that thing. Thanks for joining us again, my friend. You don't think the investigation's over either. Why?
Unfortunately, the anti-Trump coalition is going to fabricate and investigate for the rest of our lives.
Understood. Bob, thank you as always. And finally, aforementioned Allie of Anchor Alley's get in here. Thank you so very much. Also a Navy vet. You say it's time to build up our nation. Why?
Absolutely, Todd. I think we need to focus on our economy, creating more jobs here at Anchor Alley's in Virginia Beach. We have 2 locations, and we have created around 50 jobs here.
That's awesome. Let's give a hoorah for jobs. This was awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was a great day. Back to New York.
All right, Todd. Nicely done, Todd. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Great veteran-owned diner there. All right, the cheesesteak is known as one of the great American sandwiches. Watch.
It's a Philadelphia cheesesteak, was it?
This is not a
Day, and we have authentic cheesesteak straight from the birthplace to settle the great cheesesteak debate right here at Fox and Friends. Who has The best sandwich.
Well, joining us now is Frank Oliveri. He's owner of Pat's. It's an institution. And Tony Luke Jr., CEO and co-founder of Tony Luke's, an institution of its own. Gentlemen, I'm looking forward to trying Tony's. I have been to Pat's.
Yes.
And I remember covering John Kerry's campaign, and he showed up. And when you go there, you go up to this window, right? It's in the street in Philly, and you either order whiz or without. And I was like, whiz? It turns out it's Cheese Whiz.
Yes, it's Kraft Cheese Whiz.
But John Kerry, as you can see in that picture, he had a little twist on that.
He came to the window and he whispered, "Do you have Swiss cheese?" And
he whispered it.
And for us cheesesteak guys, the Tony would agree with this. No Swiss cheese. That's like for a Reuben or something like that,
yeah,
right?
It's not for a cheesesteak.
Okay.
No.
So I said, no, Mr. Curry, I said, no, here it's either American, provolone, or whiz. If you don't want to get tied to a fence and beaten to death, have the cheese whiz.
Tony, you guys are competitors, but what makes for a great cheesesteak? It's not Swiss cheese. What is it?
No, look, it's very simple. It's a marriage of the roll, the cheese, and the meat, and onions. I want to say it again on national TV, and my dear friend will absolutely back. Sweet peppers do not belong on a cheesesteak.
I totally agree.
No.
Well, what does belong on a sandwich?
This is a greasy wrapper, I will say. You got an up. This is really greasy.
We want to know.
He upped his grease game.
So he uses whiz. I use American or mild provolone, and what we normally do is just put it on top, and then we'll melt this in. And Frankie will put his on, and he'll layer his.
Try one of these. I tried, and Frank's is great. I've already tried.
Your
meat
looks
different here as well. Isn't it different?
Right. What happens is we both use ribeye. Frankie cuts from a whole. We have a cattle ranch that we use in the United States. So what we do is we trim it. We take the best of the ribeye, and then we force it together, and then we slice it.
He
goes for
the big one.
He goes right for the big one.
So the difference is too, for us, our signature sandwich is Cheese Whiz. So we sell more Cheese Whiz than American or provolone.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So in other cheesesteak places, they just do it differently. We put our American cheese or provolone cheese on the roll, and the heat of the meat actually melts it, whereas
they do it in the pan.
They do it on the grill itself.
Yeah. Frank's a jokester. During the break, he told me that he gets his meat from Australia. So I said, "Oh, what is it?" And he said, "It's kangaroo." I kind of believed him for a second.
You did actually for a second. You gave him a really weird look. But
have you just tried anything? I tried this one. It was great. I tried Pat's. I'm going to try Tony's.
Wait, no, we just switch it over. There you go. Here, be an animal like him. Take the whole thing.
Be an animal.
Be an animal. I got it all.
I like the Cheese Whiz, I got to say.
You have a winner?
Which one's your favorite? This one? All right.
It's the Cheese Whiz.
It's the Cheese Whiz.
Pete?
It's the Cheese Whiz.
Pete?
I can't choose.
You have to choose. Don't be Switzerland.
You know what? I'm
Make a
going.
decision.
I like Tony's. Tony's is delicious. I like Tony's.
I can't be Switzerland. I feel like I'm going to go with Pat's.
Pete.
I like the Cheese Whiz.
Thank you.
Which one do you like?
Tony's was great.
So is that a tie? I think it's a tie.
2-1. You
2-2.
You got to break it.
2-1.
One with the cheese you can't see.
Well, I think it's cheesesteak, so everybody wins.
Yeah, nobody's.
It's just a matter of preference.
The
Which cheese.
It's a matter of what cheese that you like.
Yeah. Right.
The winner is us right now. That's exactly right.
Exactly. Well, happy National Cheesesteak Day, and I'm sure we'll be celebrating in Philadelphia every day of the year.
Go to Philly, check out every day.
Tony Luke's. Check out all the places. You'll love it.
Yeah,
we will.
Pick which one you like.
All right, meanwhile, the waiting game for the Mueller report may finally be over, but that won't stop the left from targeting the first family. Saul Weissenberg says this was all a delusion to avoid realizing Democrats lost the election. He weighs in next.
And March Madness is upon us, meaning Pete and Ed are ready for some friendly or not so friendly competition.
All right. Findings from Robert Mueller's report could be sent to Congress as soon as today, as Democrats demand the entire report, not just the findings, be made fully public, a request our next guest claims is essentially a crime. He's going to explain. Fox News contributor Saul Weissenberg, he, of course, served as deputy independent counsel, I should say, in the Whitewater-Lewinsky investigation with Ken Starr. He joins us now to explain. Good morning, Saul.
Good morning, Ed. Great to be here.
It's great to have you and your insight because, as I understand it, and you know better than I, but I want our viewers to understand it because they're going to hear a lot about put the whole report out there. In America, if you're not indicted, it's not proper, as I understand it, for the Justice Department to just put out all the underlying evidence, as Chuck Schumer says he wants out there, and says, well, we didn't indict you, but here's all the bad stuff we heard about you.
Yes, that's against Department of Justice policy, Ed, but there's a even more important point, and that's that Congress wants, and Senator Schumer and House Speaker Pelosi have said we want the entire report released immediately. If Barr was to do that right now, he would be guilty of a federal felony. It is a violation, a federal criminal violation, to release matters occurring before the grand jury without a court order. And I can guarantee you that in the Mueller report are matters appearing before the grand jury, not the whole report. Now, I've got no problem if they want to release it after Barr gets a court order, but he can't do it without a court order. They're basically telling him to commit a crime.
Well, Saul, real quick, we have a bit of breaking news where the White House spokesman Hogan Gidley has just told reporters that as of this moment, the president, the White House officials have not yet received or been briefed on the details of the Mueller report other than what the Attorney General put out there Friday. So I've got a minute. What do you think about how Barr, the Attorney General, is handling this? And also, what are the Democrats saying, regardless of what's in the Mueller report? We're going to keep on investigating the president and his family.
Well, I mean, they control the House. That's up to them. That's politics. That's, that's part of the American system. Let them have at it and let them fight with the administration over how much of the subpoenas will be responded to. But I think Barr's doing it exactly in a proper way, exactly like he said he was going to do it. He says, I want to get as much out as possible consistent with the law and DOJ policy. But I will tell you this. If they allow everything, if they decide that everything, all the raw data from the Mueller report should come out, you should do the same thing for the FISA information, right?
We heard that from
the
Devin
same
Nunes.
Democrats who are demanding all the raw data tried to keep that on the question of abuse of the FISA process. So sauce for the goose, buddy. Let it all hang out.
Very well put. Saul Weissenberg, we appreciate that. And in fact, for our viewers, we just heard in the last moment or so, Attorney General Barr has left his home in the D.C. area. We don't know if he's headed to the Justice Department to review the report again, but we will be on top of the story. Thanks, Saul Weissenberg. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Ed.
Yep.
Well, the only thing we know about that is that he's not going to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, we certainly know that. Thank you, sir. March Madness is here. Pete and I ready to bring it out on the court for some not-so-friendly competition. You don't want to miss the madness. Wait, he's getting practice time. He's out on Fox Square. I'm taking off my jacket, and I'm going to beat him.
Give it to him now! All right, March Madness is upon us, meaning Ed and I are in competition mode. It's been 1 year since this unfortunate incident, and Ed has not stopped talking about it.
For a year.
A year.
That's
A whole year.
I need you.
Yes, sir.
Give it to
Sorry, the better man won. So I guess I'll let Pete have a rematch, but I thought maybe he could use a few pointers first.
All right, well, so here with some of the tips that we need, Coach Calabria, correct? How to say your last name? From Premier Basketball New York. So there's a competition going on between all three of us. What advice do you have for us this morning?
Probably the most important thing I can say is that it's cold, so make sure you get your legs under you, you're using them, and that you hold your follow through until that ball goes through the net. Trust your body. Stay in your form.
Got it. Tell us, Premier Basketball NY, what is it?
Premier Basketball New York, what we do is we do basketball training. We run an AAU program. I'm very fortunate. I have an elite team of AAU kids that I bring to get recruited at NCAA certified tournaments.
Very cool.
So we run a lot of camps, and you're always, especially Gunner.
All right, I'll bring him.
Here we go.
All right, Katie's going to try. 3 shots from Katie.
Ready?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, let's go.
Oh, that looked good.
Hey, same thing.
Come on.
Same thing. That's on. That's on. Oh, that's money! Come on.
A little short.
Is it only 2 this year?
Only 2.
Is it 2?
Oh, 2 for
everyone
So I'm the
misses one.
challenger, so I go first? A lot of pressure here, Ed.
You can do it. You got this.
The elephants are with you.
Yes, sir. Oh, that felt so good. I said that last year.
Oh, we gotta get one here. We gotta get one here. Redemption?
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Come on. Only one. We'll take it. All right.
There it is.
Good job. You gotta make both, Ed.
Ed's a dead eye. Can the newsman do it?
Ed, use the glass, Ed.
I know you can.
No.
New champion! Pete Hexton.
That was
Rick, bonus. Oh, Rick.
One more for Rick.
Hey, it's straight.
Side up.
Oh, one more. All right. This is just to rub it into Ed.
More Fox and Friends, moments away.
Wow, it's over. The year it's over.